This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the First 100 podcast. This is the podcast where we discuss and explore the journey of entrepreneurs, agency leaders, business owners as they share with us their strategies, the challenges, and the triumphs that have led them to secure those first 100 customers. I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's partnership coordinator. I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Gavin Reynoldson. Hi, Gavin. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very excited to have you today on the podcast. For starters, for anybody that doesn't know you, wants to get to know about you, who you are, and what you're all about, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Gavin, and I run a web design and digital marketing agency in the UK, and I've been doing that for about maybe 6 to 8 years, and was in a completely different career field before that. So a whole new thing for me. But for the last sort of 9, 10 years, I've been working for myself.
Awesome. Yeah. So, this podcast is about, that moment when you got started. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you sort of transitioned into a marketing agency? What were you doing before? What made you want to do that jump?
Of course, yeah. So I think there's probably two big transitions. What I used to work in a university as an teaching as an academic. So the first transition was to start my own business, maybe 10 years ago, an educational technology company. Spent lots of money. Spent a couple of years trying to build it. It didn't work. It was a failure ultimately. But I learned a lot, and I learned how to code and all these other bits and bobs. So first failure. Next was transitioning to a WordPress support agency with a friend. That ultimately didn't go anywhere either, so another failure. And then I started this business, which I've been running for the last sort of 6 to 8 years, which is a web design and marketing agency. And so it's really only picked up over the last couple of years, and it has been a real challenge. It's been a real sort of slog to try and get it to work. And I think resilience and consistency is the thing a lot of the time that will get you to the point that you need to get to, where it starts to really pay off.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I find it very interesting that you sort of had some trial and error before, right? What do you think was the difference or like the driving factor that led for this business, for marketing and web design to be the successful one opposed to the stuff that you were doing before?
I think it's learning from past mistakes. So for me, I started a business that I knew nothing about. I used to teach science-based subjects at university. I knew nothing about web design or coding or building a business. I had no understanding of that. So spending 3 or 4 years trying to do those things and endlessly failing and learning at the same time taught me so many lessons, and also taught me how to do those things. And the one thing it made me realize is you need to generate a lot of awareness. You need to generate as much awareness about your business as possible. You need to shout from the rooftops about your business to tell everyone that you exist. And when you do that, you might get 1 or 2 customers, and that's about it. And sort of the reality sets in that you let everyone know and you just get a couple of customers, and you start to realize, like, oh, I really do need to do a lot of marketing. I really need to present myself to the world to get some customers. And I didn't realize that before. When I first started, and it's what happens with my customers now, they come to me and they say, I've got a website. Why am I not rich? Why haven't I got loads of customers? I said, well, nobody's seeing your website. And that's the mindset I had when I first started. So I think that was the real reality for me. The realization, I should say, was you have to let people know that you're there. And realize that to start with.
How hard was it for you to get 100 or like the first, we call it first 100 because we try to count them like for those first 100 customers, but I don't know what number was it for you where you feel like you were actually finally starting to get to a stable place where you were getting enough leads, enough customers, like the prospect number was getting pretty
I
good?
would say, yeah, that's probably only happened in the last couple of years. And for me, it was finding a reliable lead generation system for my business. And I'd say it was in two phases. So the first phase was I created content on TikTok during the pandemic. I set up a TikTok channel, and I said to my girlfriend, my girlfriend, I said, let's see if I can get to 1,000 followers. I didn't think I'd be able to get to 1,000 followers, but I tried, and actually I did. And then I got to 5,000 and 10,000. When I got to around 5,000 followers, I started getting leads. They started coming in from TikTok. And so that was the first step. The first step was creating as much content as possible on social media to help people, to educate people. That started generating leads. And I'd get leads on a regular basis each month. They'd be coming in through social media, pretty much my only channel. The next step where the lead gen really blew up was to come up with an actual offer instead of just creating content. And so the offer that I have in my business is that I do a free digital marketing audit and one-to-one strategy session. So I jump on a call with a customer and I really go to town. I mean, I really help them for free in a huge amount of depth. And they love that because, I'm not trying to do a sales pitch. I'm really truly trying to go in depth and help them. And then I ran ads to that offer, and that generates me around 100 leads a month now. So that
Wow.
yeah. So that really, once you found something, and I had to test quite a few different lead magnets to see what worked. And that was the one that really worked. And I think it probably works because you're truly offering people help. A lot of lead magnets are a bit rubbish, download this free guide that no one's gonna read. And ultimately you have to help people a lot and then try and make it work for you as well. So you're not working for free. The first time I did it, I did 100 audits, which was probably 200 hours worth of work, and it didn't convert. I didn't get a single customer. So you're still learning as you're going along. Like, what can I do to make it work for me and for the customer? But that's where it really started to pick up. So, and I should say before that, I was probably only getting one or two leads every couple of months. That's how low it was. So it was really tough.
Well, I like to this. I have like actually two questions. Financially, I think a lot of like people who want to start a business, whether it's something tech related or regardless of the nature of the business, worry about that financial aspect of until they see growth, right? Because like I think for a lot of people, starting a business means that you're not going to see revenue and profits for a minute, and then you might start seeing that later. How were you able to handle that when you were only getting one or two leads, or when your financial probably you were spending more on your business than you were making?
Well, I wasn't. That's that I wasn't able to cope with it. It was really, really horrible. I mean, for me at least, the reality of it, and I'm sure this is for a lot of business owners, everyone around me is saying, "Why are you doing this? Just get a job, you know? Just get a job. It's not going to work. Why are you doing this?" And I can understand their thinking, but for me, it's a case of, well, if you stop now, you definitely won't get where you're going. And so the fine look, I couldn't pay my bills. I had red letters coming in saying you've missed payment on your credit card multiple months in a row. You've maxed all your credit cards out. You've borrowed tens of thousands of pounds and you need to pay it back. Couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't pay my mortgage. Letters from the landlord saying you've missed your rent payment. Like, that happened for probably 6 or 7 years. It was really, really stressful. It was really hard. Um, borrowing lots of money. It was tough. It is really tough. But so you've got to make a decision ultimately. You've got to say, look, is this going to work out? Do you think it's going to work out? And should you keep going? Or should you just stop and get a job? And for me, it's a case of, well, sure, I can stop and get a job, and then I'll just be doing that thing forever. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest with you. I didn't know what job I would do. I wasn't really sure. So I thought I might as well just be stressed
Keep
and
pushing it.
depressed doing this.
Yeah.
Try and make it work.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, perseverance is really important. I think a lot of people sort of lose that drive along the way. But you're living proof that, when you keep trying and then you find finally that sort of formula, that's when you actually start seeing results, which is also interesting to me. And I wanted to ask, you said you started through TikTok, then you also ran paid ads, right? Um, in that regard with paid ads, I think a lot of businesses have tried to dabble in the paid ad world, like having like Instagram ads, Facebook ads, YouTube, whatever it is. But I think a lot of businesses also had a hard time sort of channeling that properly or seeing any results from that. So, what are those key metrics that, you look for when you're running a paid ad? What are you tracking to see the success of paid ad campaigns? How do you adjust to those results as well?
I'm not sure there's a particular metric that I would track, but what I would say the thing that nearly every business owner gets wrong that we speak with, so we run paid ads for clients, and you'll see this on a call with them right from the get go. Is running ads is all about data. You run the ads and you collect some data, and then you look at it and you say, what happened? We spent some money. What happened? How many people clicked on the ad? How many people viewed the landing page? How many people clicked and booked and paid or downloaded the thing, whatever it was? And then you say, well, what can we do to improve that next month? The reality of ads is the first month that you run them, you're probably not really going to get very good results, if any. And that's what you should expect. Now, of course, you might have a stellar first month and get great results, happy days. But the reality is probably in the first month, you're just going to get data. You might get a few results. You then optimize on that so that in the next month, you get even better results. And then in the third month, you do it again and get even better results. I would always say to clients, look, we're probably looking at 2 to 3 months to really get it right for you, which means you need to have a big enough budget to cover that period of time for testing. And everyone I speak to will say something like, oh, we spent $300 on Instagram ads and we didn't make any money. So we turned the ads off. The reality is you're probably going to have to spend $500 to $1,000 in testing, potentially even in the first month. And so if you're in the situation where you can honestly say, look, if this $300 doesn't work for me, I'm going to have to stop, then you can't afford to run ads. You need to find a different channel. Ads are really expensive, right? So you need to find a channel that works for you organically before you have the budget. Uh, if someone's to put a number on it, I would say, look, if you've got 5 grand put aside, that would be a nice budget for practicing ads with to to get them to work. I don't mean just spend 5 grand and get nothing from it. But if you can put 5K, 3 to 5K aside, you can run testing and you can optimize over a period of 2 to 3 months to finally work out. Because by the end of 2 or 3 months, you can say, right, we did these things and they didn't work. So get rid of them. And we did these things and they do work, but it took us quite a while to work that out. And now we're going to spend all our money on those things that work. And that is when the magic moment happens. And the client's like, oh, loads of leads are pouring in, or we're making good money now. Return on ad spend is gone from 2 to 5, or whatever it might be. That just takes time. And a lot of businesses do not have the cash available to do that testing. So they think ads don't work. And ads do work, if you get it all right.
How do you determine which ad to run? I think some businesses also struggle with what ads they should focus on, right? Like, should it be Google ads? Should you do social media ads like Instagram and Facebook, TikTok ads? Like, do you think that it's depending on people's industries or, like maybe it's more effective in one than the other one? Or do you think it's just universal?
No, I mean, that's generally the case. There's a couple of things to consider. One is, where do your audience exist? First of all, do some research. Are your audience that you're trying to sell to, are they mostly on Pinterest? Or are they mostly, lifestyle related and they're on Instagram? Um, what kind of format would work best? Is it video content that will works best for your particular product or service? Or would images work best? And then the next thing to consider is, what stage of the funnel are you trying to find them? So if people want that thing right now, so if I go onto Google and I'm like, book a massage right now, well, that's the bottom of the funnel. That's someone looking for something right this instant. So Google search ads is perfect for that, because you want to get in front of the person who wants that thing right now. I've already made the decision. You don't need to sell it to me. I know I want a massage right now, so I've just got to book one in. So you would go for Google search ads. But if you've got something that people don't know about, they don't know you, they don't know your brand, they don't know your business, you need to educate them about who you are, what you do, how you help them, how you solve their problems. Well, then you need to get in front of them in a different format. So images and video content, which you show to a much larger audience, and you do that over a longer period of time. So it's like, hey, have you got this problem? Look, read a story about how one of our customers solved this problem, and so on. And you just keep showing that content to them, and so on. That might be Instagram, it might be Facebook. They all have slightly different nuances. You can probably find most customers in most places, um, but you'll get better results if you really narrow it down in the way that I've just said.
Yeah, and I think all of this also goes really hand in hand with things like SEO, right? I think you need to sort of hone that in order to start seeing results with paid ads, which is why I wanted to ask you, what do you think you had been doing with SEO that made your ads sort of start to get successful? I think a lot of people get scared of this and, they get overwhelmed with it, and they're not really sure how that ties into content marketing, ads, Google, all of these random things. How do you optimize this?
SEO is the best way to think of SEO is a bit like if you were to purchase a physical location as a store or a shop on a busy high street, a real busy shopping center. And at the moment, your location that you've bought is out in a forest somewhere. If there's a path, and once in a while a dog walker walks past and sees your shop. But now you've got a big enough budget to put your shop location in a busy high street with loads of people walking past all the time. That's essentially what you're doing with SEO. If you can get yourself onto page one, you're putting your business in front of organic traffic who are searching for the things that you do all the time. So even if you weren't running ads, because when your ad budget runs out, the ads stop. When the ads stop, you stop getting traffic. With SEO, that organic traffic is always there. You're always getting customers pouring through the door. So the problem with that is, number one, it takes quite a long time, often months, and in competitive industries, it can take more than a year in order to get your website on page one of Google because there's so much competition. There are only 10 spaces on page one, and there may be 50 businesses that all want to get on page one. So you're all competing for that space. So that can be very difficult. It can take a lot of time, and it can be, financially, resource-wise, it can be hard. Um, but that's not always the case. So, like local SEOs, for example, with local SEO, you're only competing with the businesses in your local area, the websites on page one in your local area. So uh, that probably is your best way to get more customers. Local SEO. If you're a service area business, or if you've got a physical location, and you're only targeting people in a particular local area, then setting up a Google business profile and optimizing that, which Google refers to as your new homepage, and then optimizing your website for local SEO. That's probably the best way to really get as many customers possible and you can do this yourself as a business owner. Do a bit of reading and do it yourself. Really, the best way to get as many customers possible without having to run ads.
Very interesting. And I think, like, it can be very overwhelming, especially for business owners that are, a bit not in tune with social media, with in the internet, all of these online things. And I think another thing that I've noticed with that I guess a lot of business owners struggle with is that, especially with, I guess, service-based businesses, there's an increasing demand for apps, right? It's not just a website. There's an increasing demand for mobile adaptation, right? So if you have your website, it needs to be also adaptable for your cell phone. People prefer to download an app and have like a usable app than to have to go and, like, type on Safari or on Google Chrome, whatever, like www.com. How do you think that ties in for a business owner? Do you think that it's important right now? Can it be overlooked? Do you think that there's specific tools or strategies that could make this process a little bit easier?
Yeah. So most people will look at a website on their mobile. So the first thing that probably the best thing for a business owner to do, or when they're speaking to their designer and ensure that is happening, is that designer is taking a mobile first approach. So ideally, you want them to create the designs for your website in the first instance in the mobile format. So how it looks on mobile, not on desktop, on laptop, etc. Because most people will be looking at it. And you can see that when you visit a website sometimes, it's not optimized for mobile and you're looking at it on your phone and you're trying to like move around and you can't quite find, and it's got poor user experience and so on. So a mobile first approach will ensure that people get the best results, the best user experience from your website. About 55 to 60% of people will visit a website on their mobile. So most of your customers are going to be looking at your website on mobile. So it needs to be optimized for that. And some of the things you find, we've all done it before. You use a website, you can't click on a button properly, or you can't find something on the site, or it doesn't work properly because it hasn't been optimized for mobile. So it's very, very important to do that. And it's the same with your ads. If you're creating landing pages for your ads, make sure those landing pages are optimized for mobile. The second thing sort of related to apps, a lot of businesses now will use these platforms where everything, so instead of having a website, everything on the platform is included. It's got like a booking platform and a payment platform and so on. You can make your hair salon appointments or whatever all through this platform. And those often come with a web app or an app that's already created. So, if you're a business owner, I hate to say this, if you're, running a web design company or so on, but I don't think people should be spending lots of money on websites, on web design, unless there's a real need for it. You don't need to spend 10, 20 grand on a fancy website. You'd be better off spending that money on marketing. What you need to do is just find a mobile optimized platform for your industry, for your niche. There's loads of them out there, where everything's already created for you and it looks fantastic and it potentially comes with an app. And often those apps themselves have the customers on there looking for you as well. There are salon and health and beauty apps like Treatwell and Booksy and all of these others and so on, where it's all just built into the platform for you. Um, and you can then just spend money on ads instead of
Yeah.
instead of fancy websites. So, I mean, yeah, there's plenty of options out there. The other thing I would say is don't go and build an app straight out. Apps are very expensive. So, maybe a web app, which is halfway between a website and an actual app itself. But yeah.
This reminds me of like like you need to track your period like as a woman. Like every month you need to like make sure you know what date it was just so that you know that everything's going well. And they have apps for that, right? So you can
Mhm.
just like input the dates and then it'll tell you like all of these things, like your ovulation process and this. And I remember I found one that was really um I don't know, I guess it was really they were running a bunch of ads because I kept getting a lot of ads for it. So
Oh yeah.
it's
Yeah.
cool. I downloaded it and it looked really pretty, but the user experience was so terrible and it was filled with stuff. So I remember the app would like tell me what cycle I was in and how that related with me to the moon and the stars.
Useful.
I guess it was cute, but it was so stressful because I can't like look at the stuff that I want because I'm filled with all of these moon conversations, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
I
It
think.
just reminded me of what you were saying.
Yeah, you see this in a lot of designs, and sometimes you'll look at a client's website and then say, "Look, can we just redesign this for you?" Someone else has done it, and they're so surprised at the amount of stuff you take off the page. You just completely strip it back to a really simple user experience because ultimately what you want someone to do is take action. You want someone to convert on that page. You've presented them with some information, and now you want them to click on a button or download something or fill in something or pay for something. You want them to take action. And the more stuff you have on a page, the more friction you have because you're just presenting someone with more and more options. You want to just say to them, here are your options. There's only a couple available, and we're making it really nice and easy for you to take those actions, but people like to put stuff on web pages, loads of stuff. So yeah.
I guess trying to like stand out, but at least for me, like I remember feeling like, dude, I just want a calendar that I can just like put buttons in. I don't need all of this. Like I don't need to know what constellation my cycle is.
So you know what you've just described, and a part of the problem here is sort of one, lack of understanding, and two is budget often. And business owners will often think, "Oh, we don't need to do that." But what you've just described is user experience research. So you create a version, you create an MVP, minimum viable product, you create a test version, for example, and then you take it out to your target audience, like you in this example, and you let them have a look at it, and you get feedback, and they say what you've just said, and so then you think, "Oh, okay, we thought it was great, but the customers don't like it. So we have to go back and change it so that you get better, get better user experience. But so many business owners think that what they think is right as opposed to the end user. And it's the end user's experience nobody cares. Look, nobody cares as a business owner. Nobody cares what you think. You're not important. As a business owner, you're not important. Your thoughts and ideas and opinions are not important. You've built this thing for someone else. So you need to find out how they're getting on with it and what they like about it. And ultimately, what the data is telling you. Like, is it converting or is it not? So many business owners will say, no, we need to change it. I have a call with them and they're like, no, I don't like it. We need to change it. And you're thinking, no, that's really bad. What are you doing? And this can be a very hard conversation because they're paying you money to do something, and you have to really try and change their
Their
opinion.
mind.
Change their mind. It's a change management. It's very difficult sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, my sister, she's, like, very artsy, so she told me the same thing of, like, I think she told me, like, basically what happens is that when you're sort of the creator of something, whether you're a business owner or a designer or something, you get to, like, you tend to get stuck in your kind of high level thinking, right? Because you have knowledge that probably other people don't about certain concepts and designs, and you can do all of these things, but the reality is that the people consuming your content, your website, your business, your products are not necessarily all going to be educated on all of this or want to be or even, like, have the need to understand it, so that point that you're trying to make probably won't come across.
I think it's also when you first start a business, it's just you. You're doing everything, and so you kind of you're in that place where everything you do is you. But if you can remove yourself from that and realize that it's the people you're selling to that are most important. And I don't mean believe everything they say, because let's be honest, customers can be a pain in the ass too
Yeah.
sometimes. You have to be strategic in the things that you ask them. But that can be hard when you first start a business. You
We learn
yeah.
to balance that out, I
Mhm.
guess, yeah. Take everything with a grain of salt.
Mhm.
Well, Gavin, it's been great having you today. I think it's been a very pleasant conversation. We talked about very interesting topics. But before I let you go, I wanted to give you the space to tell us where we can find you for anybody that would want to work with you, that's interested in you, your business, your clients, any of those things. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so most of my content that you'll find is on TikTok. I pretty much create all of my content on TikTok. So if you want to find me on TikTok, my business name is GenUp Digital. It's GENUP Digital. I think maybe on TikTok it's GenUp_digital. So you can find me there. My website is genupdigital.com. Those are the two main places that you'll find me. I do have accounts on Instagram and YouTube and so on, and so you'll find me there. But I don't really create a huge amount of content for those platforms. I would say, and this is probably to my detriment, I am somebody who tends to go out of their way to help people. So if you send me a DM on TikTok, for example, or comment on one of my posts, I will go out of my way to help you for free and offer you advice and tips and share ideas with you on how you can grow your business or any problems that you're struggling with. That's what has worked for me. If you help people, some of those people become your customers. I'm sure as my business grows, I won't be able to do that forever, but that's the stage that I'm currently at. So, if you've got questions for me or want me to help you with something, I can do so. And we do design, we do development, and we do paid ads across all platforms. So we can and SEO, we can answer your questions. I can answer your questions in respect to all of those things.
Awesome. Yeah, I will be adding your links to the description of this for the viewers to go to. And for the listeners, you heard it. Go to the video, click those links. And thank you so much for being here today. It was great having you. Um, Everybody else, I will see you on the next episode.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.